Welcome to Sassanian Persia, Empire of Light, a journey across deserts, mountains, and centuries to meet the empire that battled Rome, illuminated science, shaped faith, and forged art in stone and silver. This is not just the story of kings and conquests, it is the pulse of an ancient world. Architects and astronomers, priests and poets, traders and warriors, whose choices still echo in the map of our modern lives. Across these chapters, we'll step into fire temples and audience halls, ride with cataphracts under banners and sunrise, and listen to voices preserved in rock reliefs and rare manuscripts. We'll watch cities rise from dust and see them tested by invasion and time. More than names and dates, you'll feel the texture of power, belief, beauty, and survival. Whether you're rediscovering Sassanian Persia for the first time or returning to a lifelong fascination, I invite you to watch with curiosity and wonder. Let this be a vivid human portrait, balanced, evidence-based, and cinematic, so the empire's light shines clearly across the centuries. Settle in, open your mind, the embers are glowing, the story is about to begin. A dawn wind crosses Ctesiphon. Gold on the Taki Khosrow, hoofbeats thrum like a heartbeat before battle. One empire faces Rome, another shapes ideas that will outlive both. Will fire or iron decide the future, or the vision of those who dare to rebuild the world? Subscribe for more history. Like and comment if you believe history should never be forgotten, and share to spark conversation about the lessons we must learn from the past. This is not myth, this is history. And it begins here. The Parthian twilight lingers over Fars, where a young commander named Ardashir studies a crumbling world. The Arsacid throne is tired, governors bicker, loyalty is rented by the season. Yet in the fire temples of Persis, the sacred flame still burns. Wisdom tended by priests who whisper of order, Ērānšahr, the just harmony of cosmos and king. Ardashir listens. He is not a dreamer, he is a builder who sees the shape of a new beginning hidden inside the ruin of the old. We meet him on a ridge at dusk overlooking a caravan road. Below, merchants thread the landscape, silk from the east, wine and glass from the west, rumors from everywhere. Whoever commands the roads, Ardashir says to his captains, commands the future. He does not curse the Parthians, he outgrows them. In small victories, he tests an idea that a state can be more than a camp, that law can be stronger than accident, and that a king can be more than first among rivals. In Ardashir's camp, spears glint and horses snort. But the most dangerous weapons are patience and planning. He cultivates allies among Persis nobles, strengthens ties with priests who prefer order to improvisation, and revises levy systems to ensure his soldiers are paid and proud. When the Parthian satrap looks south to quiet a provincial hum, he finds instead a disciplined hum of foundries, drills, and messengers moving like clockwork. Traced. The turning point comes with the march north. Ardashir's banners carry sacred imagery, the fire, the ring of sovereignty, the memory of Achaemenids. On the battlefield, his cataphracts crash like a locked door forced open. But his greatest victory is legitimacy. When he enters Ctesiphon, it is not as a usurper but as Ērānšahr, king of kings. With a story that convinces, Persia will be one, lawful, radiant. We close on a ritual at a fire temple. The priest raises a hand, the flame steadies. Ardashir kneels, not in submission, but in covenant. The new Sassanian state is born, an agreement between crown, clergy, and land. The old world does not vanish, it is reorganized. Roads will be guarded, taxes counted, borders fortified, knowledge cherished. As dawn climbs the apse of the temple, The camera drifts upward to show a map lighting up, a lattice of cities, fortresses, farms, and markets. A system. Its first heartbeat is purpose. Power needs foundations. After victory, Ardashir turns from conquest to coordination. We enter a hall of administrative tablets, coin dies, and maps pinned with pegs. An empire, he says, is a promise kept at scale. He codifies ranks, clarifies tax obligations, reassigns governors, and establishes lines of communication that do not depend on the personality of a single man. The camera tracks scribes as they copy decrees. Coins are struck with bold portraits and clear legends. The message is everywhere: one king, one law, one order. Bridges are repaired, canals dredged, forts provisioned. Rural estates are measured for levy. Landholders learn that service and protection are reciprocal. To the people, this is not abstract theory, but full granaries and safer roads. In the fire temples, the clergy articulate the empire's moral architecture. Zoroastrianism offers a language of duty, truth versus the lie, care for the poor, sacredness of contracts, righteousness in rulership. The state does not merely tolerate the priesthood, it partners with it, while setting limits to keep power from ossifying into privilege. The covenant is practical. A lawful cosmos supports a lawful crown. Diplomacy follows structure. Embassies to client kings and frontier tribes carry gifts and ultimatums. The Sassanian court acquires a reputation for splendor with a point. Awe stabilizes. Yet Ardashir avoids the trap of spectacle. Without substance, audits and inspections bite. Where satraps skim, auditors appear. Where roads fail, funds arrive. The empire's visibility, coins, rituals, architecture, anchors its invisibles, schedules, ledgers, chains of command. We end with the blueprint of a capital in motion. Ctesiphon's great arch rising, workshops hammering, gardens planned along irrigation channels, schools of scribes and accountants. From the balcony, Ardashir watches torches along the river curve like a constellation. The crown and the cosmos aligned. The son exceeds the father. Shapur inherits organization and tests it against the greatest rival of the age. Our scene opens with messengers galloping under stormy skies. Rome has massed legions. Syria trembles. Shapur convenes a war council, generals, priests, logisticians. He points to roads, supply depots, river crossings. We will move faster than alarm. Field camps bloom with method. Granaries disperse to avoid catastrophic loss. Cavalry units rotated to spare horses. Engineers drilled on siege gear. When the Persians advance, they are a hinged machine. At Edessa, fate pivots. Rome's Emperor Valerian is captured, an event almost mythic in audacity. We show it with restraint, a closing Persian encirclement, a Roman standard lowered, the stunned silence of soldiers, realizing history just changed. Shapur does not squander victory. He relocates skilled Roman captives, engineers, artisans, to projects across the empire, especially near Gundushupur. This is more than humiliation of an enemy, it's statecraft by assimilation. Knowledge is taken, paid for, and put to work. Reliefs carved into rock declare the message to all frontiers. Persia is not only strong, it is purposeful. But triumph has cost. The narration acknowledges campaigns that stretch supply lines and burn out men. Shapur writes to governors, rotate levies, care for the wounded, pay on time. An empire without mercy soon has no soldiers, no farmers, no citizens. The camera lingers on a field hospital, a priest comforting a dying warrior, a scribe recording compensation for a widow. Victory and its bill tallied. We close on Shapur standing before a cliff where his relief will be carved. He does not grin, he thinks. Empires win, empires lose. but legacies are built in what they make with the time victory buys. The chisel strikes, dust falls, a king on horseback takes shape. The image that will travel centuries, out of Waris, upheaval, comes a city that learns. Bishapur rises as a hub where Persian administration, Greek science, Indian mathematics, and Syriac medicine converse. Our camera glides through lecture courtyards, physicians debating humors and fevers, translators' collation tables stacked with manuscripts, astronomers measuring angles with astrolabes under awnings. We meet Chief Physician Khosrow I, legendary for bringing tales and medical knowledge from India. His credo, curiosity with compassion. He trains apprentices not just to diagnose, but to document case histories, herbal preparations, surgical notes. Libraries organize scrolls by topic. A copying room hums with disciplined energy. The empire invests because knowledge saves coin and lives, healthier soldiers, longer working seasons, safer childbirth, fewer famine deaths through agronomy advice. In the evening, the philosophical circle gathers. A Nestorian scholar defends logic. A Zoroastrian priest argues ethics. An Indian mathematician presents a problem on positional notation. A Persian administrator asks how to standardize measures across provinces. Bishapur is not utopia, debates spark and pride flares, but the agenda is civilization by design. The state shields the scholars, so long as they serve the public good. We visit the textile quarter. Roman captives now masters. Weaving with improved looms. A metallurgist experiments with crucible steel. Perfumers refine rose extracts. Skills circulate along caravan routes like blood through arteries. The city's clinic receives villagers and nobles alike. Fees graded, charity funded by Waqf like endowments and royal grants. A midwife instructs mothers. An herbalist catalogues plants by habitat. Night. Star charts unrolled on a rooftop. Lamps gutter in the breeze. A young student asks Khosrow I whether knowledge has a homeland. Only caretakers, he replies, pointing to the constellations. These lights shone before us, and will after. Our task is to keep them from going out. Cut to black on a page. Illuminated by a careful hand to understand Sassanian durability, we must see its moral engine. Dawn at a fire temple, the sacred flame steady behind a curtain. A priest recites the gathas. Lay people wash hands, cover mouths to keep breath from defiling the fire, and enter with quiet intention. Religion here is daily structure. Purity, truth, good thoughts, good words, good deeds, woven into contracts and courts. We follow Mobed Kartir, a powerful cleric whose inscriptions still speak. He believes an empire without spiritual clarity decays into indulgence. Kartir advises kings, promotes orthodoxy, and sometimes persecutes rivals. The narration does not hide this edge. The same order that stabilizes can also narrow. Yet even Kartir must negotiate with reality. An empire of many peoples cannot be ruled by zeal alone. We explore ritual life, tending fire with dry wood and perfume, prayers at sunrise, charity obligations, funerary practices using exposure rather than burial to avoid contaminating earth and fire. Judges weigh oaths carefully. Contracts are sacred promises, their violation a sin as well as a crime. Agricultural calendars align with festivals. Tax deadlines avoid holy days. Ethics are operational, not decorative. The camera shifts to household religion. A mother instructs a child to tell the truth. A craftsman sets aside a portion for the poor. A commander insists prisoners be fed. These are not romantic flourishes, but habits that reduce friction in a large state. Meanwhile, dissenters exist. Manichaeans, Christians, Jews, Mazdakites later on. and their presence forces debate about tolerance and threat. We end at twilight. The flame still burns symbol and system. A young soldier asks Kartir whether the gods grant victory. "We grant it," he says, "when we act in truth." The empire's creed, at its best, is ethical gravity, holding people to standards so roads are safe. Godsonest scales fair. At its worst, it hardens. History will test which tendency prevails: steel, leather, and thunder. The heart of Sassanian military power was the cataphract cavalry. Imagine a desert horizon trembling as armored horses, plated head to hoof, charge in unison. Their riders, nobles sworn to the king, wore scale armor that glittered like fish under the sun. The empire's strength was not numbers but precision, every hoofbeat part of a symphony of war. The cataphract charge was devastating because it combined shock and discipline. First, screens of light cavalry probed, feigned, and harassed. Then, heavy horsemen formed wedges, their lances like a forest tilting forward. When they struck, lines broke as if the earth itself split. Yet the Persians were not reckless. They knew a cavalry charge without planning bled armies dry. Supply depots, scouting patrols, relay riders, and encampment routines sustained the machine. Strategy went beyond the battlefield. Fortified frontiers, the Caucasus gates and desert limes, channeled invaders into kill zones. War was theater, intimidating enemies, impressing allies, reassuring subjects. In Rome, whispers of Persian cavalry inspired dread. Even emperors had to respect the thunder from the east. But glory carried cost. Horses demanded fodder, smiths hammered endlessly, and noble riders expected land grants in return for loyalty. The empire managed this delicate balance through estates and stipends. To feed the war machine was to govern wisely, or lose the trust of those who held the lances. The cataphracts were more than soldiers. They were symbols, living monuments of the empire's discipline, wealth, and vision of cosmic order. A single charge was not just battle. It was ideology made visible in steel. War built walls, but trade opened doors. The Sassanian Empire sat astride the arteries of the world economy, guarding passages where silk from China, spices from India, furs from the north, and glassware from Rome converged. The king's treasury thrived on tariffs, markets bustled, and caravans stitched provinces into prosperity. A caravan sets out at dawn, camels creaking under bales of silk, mules stacked with amphorae of wine, guards riding alert. Caravanserais dot the routes, offering safety, stables, and news. In bazaars, traders haggle under awnings, silver coins passing from hand to hand, minted with the king's profile, and fire altar. Every exchange reinforced authority. Coinage was both commerce and propaganda. The Sassanians didn't just move goods. They added value. Weavers crafted tapestries. Goldsmiths set gems into intricate patterns. Glassworkers created vessels, coveted from Rome to India. Silk dyed with Persian indigo commanded higher prices than the raw thread that entered. Economies grew not by accident but by design. Merchants became envoys of culture. They carried not just goods but stories, religions, and ideas. In distant markets, whispers of Persian grandeur spread. Diplomats often followed the same routes, gifts exchanged alongside goods. Trade was diplomacy's softer weapon. We end at the harbor of Siraf, where ships creak at anchor, their sails striped with foreign dyes. Sunset glows on warehouses stacked with goods bound for distant shores. For distant shore, Persia, empire of land and sea, not only wielded swords, it spun webs of wealth. Step into the audience hall of Ctesiphon. The Tak-e-Khosrow arch rises vast as a stone sky. Beneath it, the King of Kings sits upon a gilded throne, his robes embroidered with gems, his crown suspended by chains. to ease its weight. Courtiers line the hall in strict order. Nobles, generals, priests, scribes, each with assigned rank and ritual. Protocol here is political theater. Visitors bow 3 times, gifts are inspected and displayed. The king speaks little, but each word weighs like iron. To break etiquette is to risk offense that could shift borders. The court's splendor is deliberate, awe keeps loyalty intact, but behind grandeur are artists and artisans. Miniaturists illuminate manuscripts, musicians play harps and lutes, dancers weave stories with movement. Poets recite verses comparing the king to the sun, his justice to reign. Court culture is not frivolity. It is ideology in velvet and rhythm, yet the court is not without intrigue. Whispers swirl in colonnades, petitions pass in coded gestures. A misplaced glance can mark ambition or betrayal. Still, the court is a mirror of empire, order, hierarchy, beauty, and danger. Night falls, torches flare, and the king retires behind curtains heavy with gold thread. The empire rests in ritual-s embrace, and its people believe stability has a throne. On cliffsides across Persia, stone becomes speech. Sassanian kings carved their victories, rituals, and claims into reliefs that endure centuries. At Naqsh-e-Rustam, horses rear, kings grasp rings of sovereignty. Enemies kneel. These are not decorations. They are proclamations in a language of power. We see masons at work, chisels clanging, dust rising, overseers comparing sketches to stone. Every detail matters. The height of the king's horse, the folds of robes, the humiliation of a captive. Reliefs were positioned where travelers, traders, and pilgrims would see them. They were billboards of legitimacy, carved larger than life. The relief of Shapur I with Emperor Valerian kneeling became legend, a Roman defeat frozen for eternity. Another shows investiture scenes, the king receiving authority from Ahura Mazda, fire altars burning in the background. To subjects and foreigners alike, the message was clear. This rule is divinely sanctioned and historically inevitable. But rock reliefs also reveal personality. Some kings emphasize piety, others boast of conquest. Some reliefs show families, highlighting dynastic continuity. In them we glimpse the human anxiety beneath the grandeur. Will memory last? Will stone outlive mortality? The narration closes as the camera sweeps across worn carvings, lit by sunset. Though weathered, they still speak. The kings who carved them are gone, but their images still demand our gaze. An empire rests on stories as much as spears. For the Sassanians, the supreme story was that the Ērānšahr, king of kings, mirrored cosmic order. His crown was not just ornament but symbol. Every crescent, globe, or wing represented divine mandate. In the fire temple, priests chanted verses affirming his role as protector of Ērānšahr, truth and order. In court, poets praised him as shadow of God on earth. In villages, coins stamped with his profile circulated daily, carrying his image into every hand. Legitimacy was everywhere, woven into ritual and rhythm. The ideology was layered. To nobles, the king was arbiter of land and privilege. To priests, he was guardian of faith. To commoners, he was guarantor of justice and harvest. His authority had to bridge all three, or collapse would follow. But ideology was never unchallenged. Rebels, heretics, and rival claimants tested its strength. Every coronation was both triumph and gamble. In the flicker of a temple flame, a crown rests upon an infant's head. It is the year Sembite Lingzhou CE, and the empire anoints a king not yet born. Shapur II is the king who wore a crown in the womb. His reign will last 70 years, the longest of any Sassanian ruler, and his life will test the empire's endurance. As a child, regents govern in his name. By adolescence, he takes command with startling vigor. Shapur rebuilds armies, reorganizes taxation, and reclaims territories lost to Rome and desert raiders. His campaigns are brutal. Arab tribes in the south are crushed with fire and sword, their waters poisoned to break. This is the hard edge of survival in a world of ceaseless threats. Against Rome, he proves cunning. Fortresses rise, supply lines stretch, and the empire of Constantine feels the pressure of Persian resilience. Neither side achieves lasting conquest, but Shapur earns respect as the equal of emperors. He is both feared and admired. Beyond war, Shapur strengthens Zoroastrian orthodoxy, empowering priests to standardize rituals. At the same time, Christians and Jews feel the sting of persecution, caught between Persian suspicion and Roman allegiance. The religious policy reflects the tension of survival, unity through fire, suspicion through fear. In the twilight of his reign, the empire stands taller. Borders are defended, revenues are steady, and the young king has grown into a ruler who shaped a century. Shapur II embodies persistence, an empire that refuses to fade. Even when pressed on all sides, every empire bleeds at its edges. For the Sassanians, the Caucasus frontier was both shield and sieve. Here, mountains funnel nomadic incursions into narrow passes. At Derbent, Persia builds massive stone walls, towers, and iron gates, the so-called Caspian gates, to hold back steppe raiders. The scene opens with laborers heaving limestone blocks, soldiers overseeing construction, and engineers measuring angles. These are not mere walls, but civilizational arteries. Fortresses linked by signal fires, roads carved into cliffs, patrols that watch horizon and sea alike. The nomadic menace was constant. Huns, Alans, Khazars, swift riders struck deep, seizing loot before vanishing into steppe fog. The empire's answer was patience. Walls, garrisons, and bribes, when blood was too costly. Diplomacy and fortification became twin weapons. At night, beacon fires flash along the ridgeline. From Derbent to Tbilisi, Persia projects order across fractured lands. These gates are not only military, they are psychological. Travelers and traders see stone permanence and know the king's reach extends even here. The frontier demanded vigilance, yet it stitched Persia into the geography of continents. The Caucasus gates were thresholds between empire and steppe, between chaos and cosmos. Not all horsemen came as enemies. Some rode as allies, others as mercenaries, and some as settlers. The Sassanians had a complex relationship with the steppe nomads, war, alliance, and assimilation in constant rotation. A council scene unfolds. Persian envoys seated across from nomadic chieftains, the fire altar behind them, casting light on negotiation. Gifts are exchanged, silk for horses, silver for loyalty. Some tribes agree to guard frontiers, others to raid Roman lands in exchange for Persian coin. The empire thrives on turning enemies into auxiliaries. On the battlefield, alliances are fragile. Steppe riders wheel with deadly speed, their arrows darkening the sky. Persian cataphracts counter with heavy shock. The clash is less ideology than survival, control of trade, pasture, and prestige. In quieter times, nomads settle. They adopt Persian dress, intermarry, and contribute cavalry to imperial campaigns. The frontier is porous, and cultures bleed into one another. A steppe prince might serve at court, while a Persian commander may marry into nomadic royalty. This chapter ends with a steppe child riding a pony near a Persian fortress, watched by soldiers. The future is uncertain, but the mingling of steppe and empire ensures that Persia's destiny was never insular. It was always entangled with riders beyond the horizon. From caravan roads and captured scholars, Persia absorbed knowledge like a sponge. The house of Ērānšahr reached its height in Shapur II's era, blending Greek, Indian, and Syriac traditions. Here, Medicine, philosophy, and astronomy thrived under royal patronage. Inside a lecture hall, physicians debate treatments for fever. One quotes Galen, another cites Indian sutras, a third argues from Persian herbal lore. Students record every one. Translation workshops hum. Syriac scribes turning Greek into Middle Persian, while Indian texts on mathematics are rendered into forms usable by court accountants. Philosophers gather at night, lanterns swinging. A Zoroastrian priest argues that ethics must guide science. A Christian philosopher responds with logic. An Indian mathematician demonstrates positional notation on a wax board. Debate sparks, but the empire protects the flame of dialogue. Hospitals attached to the academy treat soldiers and civilians alike. Herbal gardens supply medicines, while case notes circulate to improve practice. This is science as statecraft. Knowledge reduces mortality, strengthens armies, stabilizes harvests. We end with a star map unrolled under the dome of a library, constellations painted in gold. Truth, a scholar murmurs, is the empire's most enduring fortress. An empire is not ruled by kings alone. Behind the throne stood powerful noble houses, the 7 great clans, each controlling estates, armies, and ancestral pride. Among them, the House of Mir wielded immense influence, claiming descent from ancient heroes. We open with a banquet in a noble hall, carpets woven with solar symbols, bronze cups brimming with wine, and warriors boasting of lineage. Lords of Mir arrive in armor and silk, their retainers filling the chamber. Their loyalty to the king is negotiated, not given. In return for estates and honors, they provide cavalry and regional stability. But nobles are double-edged swords. They defend the throne, yet also scheme for influence. Court intrigue often turns on their alliances, marriages, and feuds. The House of Mir was known for both loyalty and rebellion, depending on the winds of fortune. Their estates, however, are engines of empire. Canals irrigate fields, workshops hum with artisans, villages pay dues in grain and service. In return, peasants receive protection from raids and bandits. Nobility is not only privilege, it is also responsibility, for if estates fall into chaos, so does the empire. We close with a noble lord of Mira swearing fealty before the king, his hand on the sacred fire. His oath is both bond and bargain. The empire survives, not only through its king, but through the great houses that hold it together or tear it apart. An empire survives on more than swords and banners. It survives on bread, water, and law. In the Sassanian world, land was wealth, and law was the system that turned harvest into empire. We open with a survey scene. Scribes in linen robes measure fields with cords, marking furrows while farmers look on. Tax registers are filled, assigning dues in grain, silver, or service. The system is rigid but fairer than chaos. Each village knows its obligations, each estate its rights. Corruption is punished by inspectors, though temptation never disappears. Irrigation is the empire's lifeblood. Engineers dredge canals, repair dikes, and divert rivers into fertile plains. The empire invests because every bushel of wheat, every orchard of pomegranates, feeds not just bellies but armies and treasuries. In dry lands, qanats, underground channels, bring hidden water to the surface, a miracle of persistence. Justice, too, binds society. Judges settle disputes with contracts sealed by fire oaths. A farmer whose ox is stolen receives restitution. A noble who defaults on dues is fined. Law was cosmic as much as practical. Violating it meant disrupting Asha, the order of the universe. The chapter closes with a panorama of rippling wheat fields under the Persian sun. Canals sparkling, villages humming with life. This was the quiet strength of empire. the rhythm of plough, water, and justice. Not all glory is forged in iron. Some is played on strings. At the heart of Sassanian cultural life was Barbad, the legendary musician of Khosrow II's court, whose songs still echo in Persian tradition. In the palace hall, nobles recline on cushions. As Barbad tunes his lute, his music is not mere entertainment, it is a calendar, a philosophy. He designs the 7 royal modes, 30 lads, and Sambite Lika's melodies to mirror the days, weeks, and months of the year. Music becomes time itself, structured in harmony with cosmos. Barbad's voice soothes kings and stirs warriors. His songs immortalize triumphs, mourn defeats, and whisper of love. Musicians, dancers, and poets join him, turning the court into a stage where art legitimizes power. A king's reign without music is like a feast without wine. Yet music is also politics. Rivals envy Barbad's influence. Whispers of intrigue swirl. One jealous courtier plots to silence him. Enwer and whisper, but the king shields his bard, valuing his song as highly as his generals. The chapter ends with Barbad plucking a final chord as torches flicker. His melodies flow like rivers, carrying culture beyond the palace into villages, caravans, and centuries. In the clang of hammers and glow of furnaces, the Sassanians turned metal into memory. Craftsmanship was not just artistry, it was economy, propaganda, and permanence. We enter a minting hall, with rhythmic blows, stamping silver drachms bearing the king's face on one side, and fire altar on the other. Coins carry more than value. They proclaim legitimacy in every hand-to-hand trade. A shepherd buying salt, a noble purchasing silk, each touches the image of the Ērānšahr. Metalwork dazzled beyond coins. Silversmiths etched hunting scenes into plates, kings loosing arrows at boars, lions, and gazelles. These images projected strength, grace, and dominion over nature. Goldsmiths fashioned jewelry for queens, while bronze and iron served soldiers in armor and weapons. Glassmaking, too, advanced, producing vessels, admired even in Rome. Artisans mixed beauty with practicality. Helmets gleamed, shields bore intricate patterns, and horse trappings turned warfare into spectacle. The chapter closes in a treasury chamber. Stacked coins glimmer, silver bowls shine, and artisans bow before the king, their work sustaining both wealth and wonder. Craft was empire, struck into form, empires mirror and clash. In the 6th century, Justinian's Rome sought renewal. Hagia Sophia rose, laws codified, armies marched. Persia watched warily. For every Roman ambition, the Sassanian state prepared an answer. The chapter begins with envoys crossing snowy mountains, bearing treaties etched in wax and gold. Diplomacy alternated with violence, truces agreed, broken, reforged. Frontier fortresses changed hands, cities were besieged, and civilians suffered in the endless tug of war. Persian generals perfected strategy, strike swiftly into Syria, retreat before Roman counterattack, fortify strongholds near the Euphrates. Siege engines rolled, flaming arrows rained, yet no side crushed the other. Amid war, there was also exchange. Roman architects studied Persian domes, Persian engineers borrowed Roman techniques. Prisoners of war became artisans, blending traditions into hybrid forms. Conflict, paradoxically. We close with a split-screen vision. Hagia Sophia glowing in Constantinople, the Ctesiphon arch rising in Ctesiphon. Two civilizations locked in rivalry yet shaping one another. Like twin flames illuminating the same world, few names echo in Persian memory like Khosrow I Anushirvan, the just. His reign, Wubite Sansa I, Wubite Chisajo Ce, was remembered as a golden age where law and fairness became pillars as mighty as fortresses. We begin with a courtroom scene. Peasants kneel before Khosrow, who listens as carefully as if they were nobles. Justice, he says, is the foundation of kingship. He reforms tax laws, easing burdens on the poor while disciplining corrupt governors. Inspectors travel provinces, recording complaints and enforcing rulings. Anushirvan also reorganizes the military, paying soldiers directly from the state instead of nobles' purses, reducing feudal tensions. He supports philosophy, inviting scholars from Greece, India, and beyond. When Justinian closes the Platonic Academy in Athens, its philosophers find refuge at Bishapur under his protection. But reform is not softness. Rebels face swift punishment, and Khosrow balances compassion with iron discipline. His justice is remembered in anecdotes, the king disguised as a commoner, visiting markets to test honesty, the king rejecting bribes with cold scorn. The chapter ends with Anushirvan seated beneath his suspended crown, a beam of sunlight on his face. His justice became legend, so much that centuries later Islamic caliphs cited him as the model of a righteous ruler. Knowledge travels in unexpected shapes, sometimes as strategy, sometimes as stories. In the reign of Khosrow I Anushirvan, India sent Persia a gift that would ripple through civilizations, chess, and the fables of Kalila wa Dimna. We open in a candlelit chamber where Indian envoys unroll a silk cloth. Upon it rests a carved board, elephants, horses, chariots, and foot soldiers. They explain the rules, a game of minds, mirroring war. Khosrow challenges his viziers. The pieces move, tension builds, and suddenly, checkmate. The empire sees not just pastime but philosophy. Strategy is woven into wood. At the same time, Indian scholars bring fables, animal tales full of cunning jackals, loyal lions, and wise owls. Translated into Middle Persian, they become Kalila wa Dimna, a treasury of political wisdom disguised as story. Courtiers lean close as a storyteller recites, "Better a loyal ally than a mighty enemy." The lessons serve both kings and children, teaching prudence, justice, and humility. From Persia, chess and tales will travel west into the Islamic world, then into Europe, reshaping minds across continents. We close with Khosrow smiling faintly as his vizier studies the board. "Remember," he says, "victory begins in thought, empire in stone. Nowhere is this clearer than at Ctesiphon, where the colossal Ērānšahr arch rises like the ribcage of heaven. The scene begins with masons craning their necks under scaffolds, stacking bricks into a vault so vast it seems impossible. Engineers calculate curves, while overseers bark orders. The arch is not just a hall, it is ideology in brick. Its sheer scale declares, "Our empire touches the sky." Inside, torchlight glows on stucco walls carved with vines, lions, and stars. Musicians play beneath echoes. Scribes present scrolls in the shadow of the arch. When foreign envoys enter, they are dwarfed, reminded that here power is architectural as much as political. But Persia's architecture is not only grandeur. Villages build qanats, caravans rest in caravanserais, farmers worship in fire-iron temples. The same engineering genius that raises the arch also digs canals, mills grain, and cools homes with wind catchers. So, practicality and majesty go hand in hand. We end with the camera soaring above the Ctesiphon, sunlight striking its curve, birds wheeling overhead. Though battered by centuries, the ruin still inspires awe, remnant of an age when walls were made not only to defend, but to astonish. Faith in Persia was not confined to kings and priests. It lived in every dawn. A fire temple glows in morning light, its sacred flame steady in a bronze brazier, White-robed priests chant hymns from the Avesta, while villagers gather in reverence. Rituals shape life. Hands are washed before prayer, mouths covered with cloth to avoid polluting the fire. Offerings of milk, bread, and incense are given. The flame represents eternal truth. Ērānšahr, order against chaos. Children learn early, good thoughts, good words, good deeds. Religion governs time. Festivals mark solstices and harvests. Nowruz, the Persian New Year, bursts with flowers, feasts, and renewal. Farmers adjust sowing to calendars tied to rituals. Merchants close shops for holy days. Even taxes respect the sacred schedule. Death, too, follows ritual. Corpses are laid in Dakma's towers of silence, exposed to birds, so that fire and earth remain pure. Priests recite prayers as families mourn with dignity. Yet the empire is diverse. Christians, Jews, and Manichaeans live alongside Zoroastrians. Tolerance waxes and wanes depending on rulers, but everyday faith remains central. The sacred fire burns, anchoring people in a cosmic rhythm. We end with the camera lingering on the flame. It flickers, then steadies, eternal. Like memory, every empire in Sassanian Persia, the greatest challenges came not only from enemies abroad, but from dissent at home. First were the Manichaeans, followers of Mani, who preached a dualistic faith, light versus darkness, spirit against matter. Mani's art-filled scriptures gained disciples quickly, but the clergy saw danger, too much light given to outsiders, too little loyalty to Zoroastrian fire. Mani was executed, his followers persecuted, yet his ideas spread beyond Persia into Rome, Central Asia, and even China. Later came the Mazdakites, radical reformers under King Kavad I. Mazdak preached communal sharing of wealth and even families, calling for equality between rich and poor. For peasants crushed by taxes, his message was salvation. For nobles, it was heresy. Persia convulsed as Mazdakite uprisings swept villages. The king flirted with reform, but soon recoiled. Mazdak and his followers were slaughtered, their bodies left as warnings. The fire of dissent was quenched, but only temporarily. These movements exposed cracks. When inequality deepened, rebellion followed. We end with a haunting image, flames devouring Mazdakite scrolls, while peasants watch in silence. Dissent had been burned away, but its embers would smolder through history. At the height of Sassanian splendor stands Khosrow II Parviz. His reign, Wubat Joshus to Lobite Arshabat CE, is remembered for grandeur, romance, and war. A king of both brilliance and excess. We open in his jeweled palace, walls inlaid with gold, carpets woven like gardens, music echoing through corridors. Khosrow parades in robes heavy with gems. Courtiers whisper both awe and envy. He is patron of art, music, and poetry, lover of the legendary Shirin, whose beauty will inspire tales for centuries. Yet splendor comes with ambition. Khosrow launches campaigns against Byzantium, seizing Jerusalem, Egypt, and even reaching the gates of Constantinople. His armies carry Persian banners farther west than ever before. For a moment, it seems the empire will eclipse Rome entirely, but hubris shadows glory. The treasury empties, nobles grow restless, and generals grumble. Rivalries and betrayals multiply. Even Shirin's love cannot shield him from fate. When reversals come, they are brutal. Persian victories unravel into defeats, and the king once adored becomes a prisoner of his own excess. We close with Khosrow staring at his reflection in a golden bowl. Around him, treasures glitter, but shadows lengthen. His reign was the empire's zenith, and the beginning of its twilight. History remembers kings, but legends remember love. At the heart of Sassanian romance lies the story of Shirin, beloved of Khosrow II, and Farhad, the tragic stonemason who dared to love a queen. We open on Shirin riding through orchards, her gown glistening with pearls. She is graceful, yet strong, admired by all. Khosrow adores her and showers her with jewels and palaces. Yet her beauty and kindness stir the heart of Farhad, a humble craftsman whose hands carve mountains. The tale unfolds like poetry. Farhad, hopelessly in love, is challenged by the king. Carve a channel through this mountain, Khosrow commands, and if you succeed, Shirin shall be yours. With hammer and chisel, Farhad strikes stone day after day, sweat mingling with tears. He believes love can conquer rock itself, but envy is cruel. Courtiers whisper lies. Shirin is dead. Heartbroken, Farhad throws himself from the cliff. When Shirin learns the truth, she weeps, her tears staining the earth. The people whisper that love greater than kings lived in their land. The story transcends history, carried in Persian poetry for centuries. It reminds us that empires build monuments of stone, but hearts carve legends deeper still. Two empires, two flames, Rome and Persia, locked in their final and most brutal struggle. Under Khosrow II, the Sassanian armies swept like a tide. Antioch, Damascus, Jerusalem, Egypt, all fell under Persian banners. For a moment, Byzantium seemed finished. We open with Persian cataphracts riding under desert suns, banners snapping in wind. Priests bless soldiers before battle, promising divine favor. In Jerusalem, the true cross is seized, carried east in triumph. Ctesiphon rejoices. Rome's sacred heart has been pierced, but empires bend without breaking. In Constantinople, Heraclius rallies his people. He reforms taxes, rebuilds morale, and leads a daring counteroffensive. The Byzantine army marches deep into Persian lands, striking where least expected. Battles rage in snowbound Armenia, rivers run red. The climax, the Battle of Nineveh, Lubyte Tce. Heraclius, clad in armor, leads from the front, cutting down Persian champions. The Persian army, exhausted, falters. Victory slips from Khosrow's grasp. The war devastates both empires. Cities lie in ruins, treasuries drained, fields barren. Though Persia still stands, its strength is cracked. This was the last great duel of antiquity, Rome and Persia consuming each other, just as a new power rose from Arabia. Religion and empire collided in Khosrow's campaigns. When Persian armies entered Jerusalem in Lubyte Cce, the shock echoed across Christendom. Churches burned, relics seized, and most fateful of all, the true cross was taken to Persia. The scene opens with Persian troops entering the holy city. Priests hide sacred vessels. Believers weep. The relic lifted high becomes both prize and provocation. For Persians, it is victory. For Christians, it is blasphemy. From Jerusalem, the armies march to Egypt, land of grain. Persian fleets sail up the Nile, capturing Alexandria. For the first time in centuries, Rome loses its breadbasket. In Ctesiphon, celebrations erupt. Persia holds the holy city and Egypt's wealth. But conquest is fragile. In occupied lands, locals groan under taxes. Churches clash with fire temples, resentment simmers. What looked like triumph begins to strain Persian rule. Back in Constantinople, monks chant prayers for deliverance. The taking of the cross becomes a rallying cry. When Heraclius strikes back, it is more than war, it is holy vengeance. We close with the relic glittering in Persian treasury light, a symbol both of glory and hubris. Soon, it will become the seed of Persia's undoing. As Persia reached its zenith under Khosrow II, the capital Ctesiphon became a wonder of the world. Foreign envoys described it as a city of endless riches, its markets overflowing, its palaces adorned with unimaginable splendor. We enter the palace treasury, golden bowls, silver plates etched with hunts, carpets woven like fields of flowers. The fabled Beharestan carpet, the spring of Khosrow, covers the hall, woven with gems and silks, depicting gardens in eternal bloom. Under torchlight, it glitters as if spring itself had been trapped in thread. The king hosts banquets with tables stretching for hundreds of guests. Musicians perform, dancers whirl, perfumes fill the air. From every corner of the empire, tribute pours in: silk from China, ivory from India, amber from the north. Ctesiphon is the heart of empire, beating with wealth. But beneath the jewels lies fragility. Armies are overextended, nobles restless, and coffers strained. The splendor dazzles but conceals cracks in the foundations. When envoys from Byzantium arrive, they are overwhelmed, not only by riches, but by the arrogance it projects. We close with the camera gliding over the Beharestan carpet, jewels shimmering like stars. Soon, foreign conquerors will roll it up and carry it away. Splendor has a price. No sword can cut what cannot be seen. In the late Sassanian age, Persia faced enemies invisible, plague, economic strain, and climate shifts. The plague of Justinian swept across the Near East, killing thousands in towns and villages. We open with mourners carrying bodies to Damascus, priests chanting prayers as flames smoke in the distance. Fields lay untended, soldiers collapse from fever, tax registers shrink, coinage debases. Silver content falls, confidence weakens. Merchants grumble that coins no longer weigh true. In markets, barter begins to replace minted trust. The treasury struggles to pay soldiers, and unrest brews. Climate shifts add to misery. Droughts parch canals, locusts devour crops, and floods ruin harvests. Villagers plead with priests, wondering if the gods have turned away. Nobles hoard grain, resentment rises. The empire staggers not from one blow, but from many: plague, coin, and climate, weaving together into crisis. Armies once invincible grow thin, nobles disloyal, peasants desperate. We close on a haunting image: the Beharestan carpet rolled in shadows, while outside, starving villagers beg at palace gates. The true enemies of empire were not just Rome or Arabia. They were silence, sickness, and scarcity. After the glitter of Khosrow II, the Sassanian crown slipped into chaos. His assassination in Ērānšahr CE opened the floodgates of succession crises. Princes, generals, and nobles scrambled for power. We open with a dim palace chamber. Khosrow lies slain, his jewels stripped. Nobles whisper in corners, plotting the next king. Within 4 years, Persia sees more than a half-dozen rulers. Kabad II, Khosrow's son, reigns briefly, but plague takes him. Queens, princes, and child kings follow in rapid succession. Each coronation is met with ceremony, but also uncertainty. Soldiers mutter. Nobles shift alliances. Priests invoke stability but cannot halt the unraveling. The empire becomes a chessboard, kings its fragile pieces. The chaos is felt in provinces. Governors act as kings in miniature, levying taxes and keeping armies without regard for Ctesiphon. Farmers groan under double burdens. Merchants whisper of Rome's resilience, and caravan routes grow less safe. The camera lingers on an empty throne in Ctesiphon, the crown suspended above, swinging slightly in draught. Shadows lengthen across the hall. The empire still exists, but its heartbeat falters. While Persia faltered, a new storm gathered in the deserts of Arabia. The Prophet Muhammad's revelations reshaped tribes into a unified community of faith. By the Lubyte censors, Arab forces pressed against the Sassanian frontier. We open with Persian scouts watching dust clouds rise from desert horizons. At first, nobles dismiss them as raiders, but these are no mere raiders. Arab warriors fight with zeal, discipline, and belief. Their unyielding cry, "God is great," shakes Persian lines unused to such unity. The frontier governors struggle. Some bribe tribes, others send desperate requests to Ctesiphon. But the court, paralyzed by infighting, cannot respond effectively. Armies are mustered in haste, nobles reluctant to contribute men or coin. In border skirmishes, Persian cavalry clashes with Arab infantry. Cataphracts break lines, but Arabs regroup, returning fiercer. Victories are fleeting, and for the first time in centuries, Persia feels on the defensive. The narration reminds us, empires rarely fall from a single blow. They weaken within, and when new powers rise, the cracks split wide. The chapter closes with Arab banners fluttering against desert sun, and Persian watchtowers bracing for storms that will not stop. The Battle of Al-Qadisiyah, Lubait Sanjalub CE, was the turning point, the moment when the empire's fate shifted irreversibly. We open with the Persian army assembled, vast but weary. Elephants tower above infantry, armored cataphracts gleam, banners ripple. Opposite them, the Arab army is smaller but fierce, their chants echoing. Between them stretches a plain that will decide history. Day 1, Persian elephants charge, scattering Arab lines. Dust clouds rise, screams pierce the air. But Arab archers target elephants' eyes. Beasts panic, trampling their own ranks. The advantage fades. Day 2, Persians fight valiantly, but supply lines falter. The Arabs fight as if possessed, taking losses but not retreating. The desert favors those used to its hunger. Day 3, the death of Rostam Farrokhzad, Persia's seasoned general, seals the fate. Pulled from his throne like saddle and slain, his army collapses into chaos. The Arabs claim victory. The narration slows as we see Persian soldiers throwing down weapons, survivors, fleeing. Qadisiyah was not just a battle. It was the fracture of an empire. We close on Rostam's fallen standard lying in dust, symbol of a dynasty's doom. After Qadisiyah, the road to Ctesiphon lay open. The jewel of Persia, city of kings, was about to fall. We open with Persian civilians loading carts, fleeing across bridges. Soldiers burn supplies, desperate to delay invaders. Inside the palace, treasures are hurriedly packed. The Bostan carpet, rolled like a captive spring, waits to be carried away. Arab armies cross the Tigris, storming gates. Resistance is fierce but broken. Soon, the city's arches echo with foreign chants. The Taki Khosrow looms, silent witness to empire's twilight. Loot is taken, gold, silver, carpets, and relics. Yet not everything is lost. Scholars flee with manuscripts. Priests guard sacred fires in secret shrines. Memory will endure, even as stone crumbles. The chapter closes with a haunting image. The arch of Ctesiphon glowing in sunset, half in shadow, half in flame. The empire has not yet died, but its heart has been torn out. The last king of kings, Yazdegerd III, was crowned as a boy amid empire's collapse. With Ctesiphon fallen, he became a king in exile, carrying the Sassanian crown from province to province, seeking allies against the tide. We open with Yazdegerd mounting a horse, crown glinting faintly, courtiers urging haste. He rides from city to city, Fars, Sistan, Merv, pleading with nobles to raise armies. Some pledge loyalty, others betray him. The empire is fractured, unity slips like water through fingers. In marketplaces, he promises justice if restored. In fortresses, he begs for soldiers. Yet peasants crushed by taxes and war see little hope. Nobles guard their estates, reluctant to risk more blood. The Arabs advance steadily. Battles are lost, fortresses fall, and Yazdegerd's circle shrinks. At last, betrayed by a miller in Merv, the young king is slain. With him ends 4 centuries of Sassanian rule. But the narration reminds us, though the crown fell, the light did not. Sassanian art, law, and memory lived on, carried into the new Islamic world, and through it, into later Persia. We close with the crown lying on sand, glinting faintly under moonlight. A relic of dreams too heavy for one boy to bear, the Sassanian Empire fell, but its light did not vanish. Like embers carried on the wind, Sassanian ideas spread into the Islamic world, reshaping it from within. We open with Arab conquerors exploring the ruins of Ctesiphon. Amid broken halls, they find scrolls, coins, and artisans. Rather than destroy, they absorb. Administrators adopt Persian tax systems, governors use Sassanian land registers, even titles, diwan and vizier, trace their roots to Sassanian bureaucracy. Persian nobles and scribes enter new courts. They train Arab rulers in the art of governance. Astronomers from Shapur teach in Arabic. Physicians copy texts into new languages, and the fire of knowledge is rekindled in Baghdad's libraries. Zariti, sope, even law and court ritual carry echoes. The pomp of caliphal ceremonies, the robes of state, the hierarchy of offices, all inherit Sassanian patterns. Now, an empire had died, but its shadow shaped the new order. We end with a symbolic image, a torch passed from one hand to another, flames steady. The afterglow of Persia lived not in monuments, but in institutions that outlasted conquerors. If politics died, beauty endured. Sassanian art, with its bold silverwork, textiles, and architecture, resonated across centuries. We open with a silver plate, a king hunting lions, muscles taut, bow drawn mid-flight. This motif becomes timeless, inspiring Islamic metalwork, Byzantine decoration, and even Tang dynasty artisans. Persian textiles, woven with winged horses and mythical beasts, travel along the Silk Road. In distant churches, fragments of Sassanian silk wrap relics of saints. Architecture, too, leaves fingerprints. The domes of Persian fire temples inspire mosque architecture. Stucco patterns and carved vines appear in palaces from Damascus to Samarra. Even centuries later, when Islamic Iran builds mosques and madrasas, their arches whisper of the Tak-e-Kasra. The fall of Persia was not an end, but a bridge. The Islamic Golden Age leaned heavily on Sassanian shoulders. In Baghdad, scholars debate beneath oil lamps. Many are Persian by descent, translating Pahlavi texts into Arabic. The famed House of Wisdom inherits Shapur's mission. Physicians refine Galenic medicine. Astronomers chart the stars. Philosophers preserve Aristotle alongside Zoroastrian ethics. Court ritual, too, transforms. Abbasid caliphs adopt Persian pageantry, silk canopies, jeweled thrones, elaborate ceremonies. The caliph becomes not only leader of faith, but heir of kingship. The Persian idea of cosmic monarchy, though reshaped, lives on. Literature flourishes. The tales of Kalila wa Dimna pass into Arabic, then into Europe, carried by traders and monks. Chess spreads as well, becoming the game of kings across continents. Even the epic tradition, culminating in Ferdowsi's Shahnameh, draws deeply on Sassanian memory, ensuring the dynasty lives in poetry as much as in history. We close with a vision of scholars at work, manuscripts piled high, the sound of pens scratching. Above them, the dome of Baghdad's library glows. Persia had become foundation rather than fragment. Centuries pass. The Sassanian Empire vanishes into dust, its cities swallowed by earth. Then spades uncover what time buried. Archaeologists dig at Naqsh-e-Rustam, Firuzabad, Ctesiphon. Reliefs emerge. Silver plates gleam again. Coins are lifted from soil. We open with a modern dig. Workers brush sand from a carved horse's hoof. Scholars lean close. debating. Was this Shapur or Khosrow? Did the relief exaggerate or reflect truth? Every fragment sparks arguments. Academia wrestles with the Sassanian past. Some see it as a rigid theocracy, others as a dynamic empire of innovation. Was decline inevitable, or was conquest a twist of fate? The debate continues in conferences, books, and museums. Visitors today walk among ruins. They tilt their heads beneath the Khosrow, imagining the hall that once glowed with banquets. They run fingers over rock reliefs, tracing the chisel strokes of kings long gone. We end with an aerial view of ruins under twilight. Archaeology cannot restore the empire, but it restores the memory. Giving light back to shadows, we return to where we began, the flame. The Sassanian Empire is gone, but its light burns on. In law, art, faith, and memory. We open with slow shots, a silver hunting plate, the ruins of Ctesiphon, children playing chess, verses of the Shahnameh recited. These fragments, woven together, remind us that Persia's story is not just past, it is present. The narrator reflects, empires rise and fall, but what endures is not conquest, it is contribution. Roads, rituals, and wisdom survive battles. Fire burns, handed from one generation to another. For modern Iran and the wider world, the Sassanian legacy is identity, pride, and inspiration. Its echoes lie in the arch of a mosque, the weave of a carpet, the justice of a ruler, the melody of a song. The Empire of Light is not only a memory, it is a living current. We close with a child in modern Iran walking among ruins at sunset, her face lit by fading glow. The flame is not gone. It is within us, waiting to be seen as we continue through triumphs and reversals. Keep watching for the human choices underneath the banners. Describe balancing a ledger on a commander rationing fairly, a healer sharing a remedy without charge, a king choosing law over whim. These choices are as relevant in our world as in theirs. If this journey sparked your curiosity, share it, discuss it, question it, and let's keep the light moving from chapter to chapter. See you in the next episode.